Ladies and gentlemen, let's begin the first webinar for the MIE Digital Month 2025 with presentation on technology in practice, artificial intelligence. The first presenter for this session will be Mr. Victor Loh, Head of Digital Tech, Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, MDEC. Victor Loh is an experienced professional with more than 25 years of enterprise technology, risk government, and public policy development. Over the years, he has served businesses, including Fortune 500 companies across the region of the Asia South countries. He is currently heading the MDEC Digital Tech Ecosystem Development, which comprises of cloud, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, blockchain, and 5G. His key role will be championing digital tech industry enablement as a catalyst for the digital economy by promoting collaboration among digital industry leaders to drive innovation, develop transformation models for businesses via digital advancements, and develop a sustainable digital ecosystem. Over to you, Mr. Loh.
Good morning, participants. Can you hear me okay? Nadia?
Yes, Mr. Victor, we can hear you.
Okay, good. A very good morning. I think is that it's been a very honor to be able to speak to a group of professionals, especially from the field of accounting. I think nevertheless, I think what we want to share this morning very quickly is that how the subject or the tools of what we call artificial intelligence actually influencing our day-to-day businesses and how we can actually scale our way of doing business today, right? So very quickly, I think where we are today is that MDEC is been agencies that driving the what you call that industry promotion agencies that driving the investment in the country. Mainly is that these are the three important roles that MDEC is driving for the country, right? Basically, it's industry development for the tech ecosystem. And then, of course, is that beside investment, we're also very, very active in driving the opportunity of exports that we'll be able to export out of Malaysia that to generate the income for the country. And lastly, of course, it's very important for the subject today. I think when we look at the technologies, that usage of technologies, there's a lot of engagement need to happen from various ministry or agency in order to drive the adoption of technology. So one of the good example will be the cloud technology adoptions. So as a leading agencies that look into the industry development for digital, right? These are the impact that we have been managed to create for the last 28 years since our inceptions of MSC, right? Actively is that we have thousands, okay, more than 3,000 today of companies that active that providing technologies, whether it's product or digital services to the country. And the job that we'll be able to drive and bring into the country actually is around 250 probably right now, the number is, right? And well, significantly, I think is that the end in mind, the tail end that we target to achieve by 2025 actually is that how to create an ecosystem that can generate additional revenue or revenue that relevant to the country that based on digital economy. So that is a target that we intend to drive for the country, which is about 25.5%. So that's the purpose of, that's the end in mind that we hope to achieve for the country as a leading agency for digital economy. So how do we do this? Basically is that we know that since the inception of MSC, very much those days are very much into the global business services, right? So whereby is that the customer service, the back-end shared services model that we want to bring in the country and operate from the country, right? But naturally, I think that what we have seen lately is that, or last 10 years actually, is that the driving of technologies, core technologies that the industry is adopting, right? Whether it's from the big data, Web3, networking, cybersecurity, blockchain, these are the ecosystem we want to put into a proper development framework, right? Besides being the user of all these 10 technology enable, we want to make sure that locally in Malaysia, we have a technology provider that local homegrown that we're able to build to support this government initiative. Primarily that the end in mind, of course, is that to make sure that we have local consumption from local providers. And of course, is that once the majority of technology reach certain level, we'll be able to export that technology outside the country. So these are the 10 technology enabled, and happen to be what we're focusing into also is that from the AI perspective, which is artificial intelligence that we will discuss next. So what is the trend of artificial intelligence development globally and locally, right? We understand that the market size of artificial intelligence have reached more than 800 billion targeted market size, right? And primarily, I think Malaysia is quite substantial in that number. I think we're looking at about 4 billion by 2030. Revenue contribution from artificial intelligence, right? So naturally, it's very, very important to make sure that once we reach that kind of maturity or consumption, we have to make sure that we have very rich ecosystem that we will drive that technology adoption. That's why is that we've been going into the industry to profile some of these technology providers that we have in Malaysia today. So based on our assessment back in September 24, we have 140 AI providers that who willing or who is doing the AI solutions for the country. And this type of job that we expect is that we expect around 500,000 jobs to be generated from AI-based job. This is based on a study by MIDA, October 2024, right? So if you have been following lately from the government direction of looking into fostering what will be the next growing tech for the country. I think we have started with cloud back in 10 years ago, whereby we have cloud for strategy. We have our Cybersecurity Act last year. And for the last, I would say, 18 months or 24 months, our administration is very, very focused into how do we drive this AI industry for the country, right? Which I'll explain next, how we're going to do it. Artificial intelligence landscape has been progressing well since 2022, I think, when we have the first what we call that AI white paper, right? So a National Blockchain and Artificial Committee been set up for the country in order to firm or to start up the direction for the country when we want to champion the subject of AI, right? So from that inception of NBAIC, it gave birth to the another very, very important agency that drives this for the country, which is the organization called National AI Office. That's under the Ministry of Digital. That was launched last year, end of last year, right? So these are the agencies that were primarily driving the roadmap for the country from now onwards until 2030. You will also help to drive the regulation framework for the country. And of course, is that nevertheless, without the usage or without the knowledge of professionals or talent, that will not be complete. So there's also a focus into how do we enable the talent readiness for the country, not only for the professionals, but also the transitioning some of these what we call that domain expert in certain verticals into championing AI for the country, right? So if we put the lens into AI into the traditional industry that we have here today, right? I can take example like our manufacturing sector. We have been championing the manufacturing sector for at least, these are the indigenous industry for the last 40, 50 years, right? So if you look at the landscape of manufacturing today, is that if we still continue to do what we do or what we're good at 30 or 40 years ago, right, it may not be competitive enough to drive this industry. Hence, I think is that the development of this new industry Malaysia plan 2030 is to look into how do we embed or how do we insert AI as one of the enabling tools to transform this industry. So there's a goal that under the NIMP that we hope to achieve is that from the Malaysia government perspective is that basically is that how do we transform at least 3,000 smart manufacturer by 2030. So in short is that 3,000 smart manufacturer will be created by 2030, whereby AI will be one of the enabling tools to drive. So then the question will come back is that, so how do we do all these things? I mean, we talk about government, we talk about manufacturing, we talk about investment, we talk about talent, policies, everything, right? So in a very nutshell conversation, how do we drive this in order to make sure that we have the right ecosystem to champion for the country, right? So this is the right formula that we hope to achieve for the country. Naturally, is that we start to break this into a three-tier fundamental, right? Which is like any of the oil and gas industry. There'll be upstream, midstream, and downstream. So the upstream part is that where we want to build the infrastructure, the core infrastructure of cloud ecosystem or AI ecosystem. So infrastructure and processing is very, very important for AI, right? So so we want to make sure that the compute power, the data center ecosystem, those are the availability of these players are actually inside the country, so that we have a better control of the supply chain when it comes to infrastructures, right? So today we have attract a huge investment from Microsoft, AWS, Google that set up the operation here in Malaysia. And we also have the supporting partner like our local cloud CSP like SNS Network that providing the GPU as a service for the country. So instead of acquiring a GPU to do AI, we can actually, the SNS network can actually render GPU as a service to the user, right? So that is the infrastructure that we have to build in order to drive the processing power. Next is that which model that we should apply, right? So there'll be two camps of idea, right? Where is that the public domain conversation whereby we're looking at a foundation model that render from all these big players like Microsoft or OpenAI. So this is the foundation model that for general applications, right? Which I think is very, very common for everyone in this industry, especially when it comes to AI applications. But nevertheless, also some of these uniqueness that in the country, like when we looking into, we want to champion technologies for certain area like healthcare, engineering, agricultures, or even government, or even any of the manufacturing industry, we may not be able to take the traditional foundation model from the outside the country. We need to have our own customized model in order to drive these AI technologies for the country. Hence, I think is that we also have our very own custom AI model that developed from the country, like QMed AI. QMed AI is a company that based in Malaysia. The founder actually is a doctor. And their focus is very much into how they use AI, custom AI model to support or to help what you call that patients when they exit from the traditional healthcare system. Actually, they have the healthcare at home. So QMed actually have the AI solutions to support that kind of needs, right? And Zentina is another example that very, very important is that this is very much into what we call supporting businesses that traditionally like engineering firms that a lot of projects delivery from engineering like infrastructures, constructions. So a lot of reporting need to be done in real time, and then tracking need to be done in real time. So traditional engineering firm that when it comes to reporting and tracking is very weak. So some of this technology can actually compensate. Like, so one idea is using Sentinel AI to help businesses to be able to generate report in real time and be able to identify red flags in real time. So that is a capability of some of these AI model that we will build for the country. Then next is that we move up the last tier is that this way everyone, this way most of the user will see to their application and services, right? So these are the services that probably as a business owner you can subscribe to. I can give an example like Glue Tech, right? So this is an example whereby when we move into industry of traffic monitoring or building monitoring, we want to make sure that we have the monitoring capability to manage the health and safety example, right? So Glue Tech will be the technology that be able to use the AI image processing to be able to identify high-risk profile of visitors, or even when we be able to identify what we call, when it comes to health and safety, be able to identify non-compliance situations, right? Time Tech will be very much into what we call the building management, whereby preventive maintenance can happen by using the AI technologies. So in a nutshell, I think is that in order to drive the AI usage for the country, of course, is that most of businesses will see the application of businesses, but fundamentally, as a country, when we want to develop this industry, the other two layers is very important, which is the infra and the AI model, right? So generally, is that if we be able to build these three layer for the country, all the application on top will happen, right? From the government to transportation to AICT, health and finance and smart city, which I'll zoom into how do we do it. So as far as right now is that MDEC been working with the industry, we already profile more than 400 410 AI technology service provider, and 300 of them are actually AI companies, right? So some of the logos that you can see here is actually quite prominent organization. They have been in the industry for many years, right? Some of them actually listed in Bursa also, right? So I'll urge that if you have interest or any business needs today, is that you can always contact MDEC, and MDEC be able to fund us some of these good technology provider to drive this in what we call that AI adoptions for the country, right? So so if I can go to the sample of usage. So sample of usage of AI actually is that we break it into three very important way to understand: to the business, for the business, and compliance. Okay, to the business basically is kind of like we use AI for internal tool. Like example, if I run a company today, how do you use AI to help my business, right? So one way, if I'm a financial institution, heuristic will be very important, whereby this automated machine learning model that be able to identify non-performing loan, right? So that is the AI model that heuristic actually built for the financial sector. And another technology, as I mentioned earlier, Zentina will be much that looking into what we call that all these structured data that we have today, whether it's minutes of meeting, reporting, data that is scattered everywhere. So Zentina will be able to use the AI model to pull all this reporting together and be able to generate a very helpful management output, right? And Numba solution actually is another solution that I think quite prominent in the industry, whereby they capture financial information of subsidiaries and be able to consolidate group companies for analytics. So these are what we call internal tools. So AI can help for businesses that what if I want to use AI to support my client better or enable my business better, right? So chat automation is another way that we can look into how do we apply AI to help any organization to function better, right? In short, maybe it's beside chat also WhatsApp AI analytics also very important. So these are a few examples that we can share is that to the business and for the business. And if we move forward to the next subject like compliance, right? I think one of the topic that we want to discuss today is that if I am a listed co in Bursa today, I need to comply with some of this ESG reporting format, right? So what are the tools that are available to do so, right? So there's a local players called Mandrill that is very much into creating a dashboard for the organization, whereby any of the listed code today, if they want to do automated or they want to do AI reporting engine for ESG, then that is a solution provider that can probably discuss with and be able to pull all these ESG reporting template together, right? So what if I'm an organization that looking into that need to comply with some of these central bank ruling of anti-money laundering processes, right? What are tools that automate or help me to enhance the detection of fraud within my system, right? So solution provider like TESS will be someone who is very familiar with anti-money laundering processes or fraud detections. So they're actually using AI to help the organization to improve the detection mechanism, right? So lastly, of course, is that for those critical infrastructures that are currently under the Cybersecurity Act 2024, all the critical organizations today will need to have a very comprehensive reporting or monitoring model, be able to report any of the incidents to the sector leaders, right? So one of the way that we can help all these organizations today is that how do we put AI, right? Because we know cyber is a subject of 24/7, and organization will need to be active 24/7. So one of the way to do this is how do we put AI enable technology be able to help organization run 24/7 to discover the anonymous attacks or unusual or what we call the anonymous incidents in real time, right? So these are the AI usage case that we can actually share and we can discuss further during the Q&A. So I think that's all. Back to the event organizer.
Thank you, Mr. Victor, for the insightful presentations. Ladies and gentlemen, the second presenter for today will be Mr. Sunil Wahi, Head of Application Solution Engineering, Japan and Asia Pacific Oracle. Sunil Wahi heads Fusion Cloud Solution Engineering portfolio for ERP, CX, and CM Cloud Solutions at Oracle Japan and Asia Pacific. Previously, he was heading the supply chain business at Oracle in Asia Pacific, where he was responsible for the business strategy and go-to-market initiative for Oracle's digital supply chain solution, which includes logistic, IoT applications, and supply chain planning in the cloud. Prior to that, he was the sales leader for Oracle's ERP cloud business for Southeast Asia, where he was responsible for developing the business across industry verticals. The floor is now yours, Mr. Sunil.
Thank you, Nurul, and I believe you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Right. And you can see my screen?
Yes, I can see your
All right.
screen, Mr. Sunil.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone, and thanks for having me here. It's a true privilege to be part of this forum and some very interesting insights which have, already been shared by my fellow panelists and presenters. I think, we had an amazing pitch on the macro areas of what is happening in Malaysia, and it was really insightful to see the way Digital Malaysia is moving ahead, right? I'll give you a view from an Oracle standpoint of what's happening from a micro, standpoint. So you as chartered accountants, CPAs, financial analysts, controllers, and other leaders in the businesses which you're operating, what are the areas around AI innovations which you can look at, and how can you essentially get into that particular journey of adoption? Now, there are three big areas which, AI has essentially promised all of us, right? One is productivity, to drive a tremendous amount of productivity, some of which we are already seeing, some of which is in motion, and some of which is planned to come as more and more, AI models start getting smarter and smarter, and insights start coming out from those amazing use cases. Second is to drive some very good areas in terms of helping businesses run in new ways and driving business processes in pretty much way more efficient functions, right? So great examples would be, can I automate my procure to pay processes? Can I automate my cash management processes? Can I leverage AI in some of those areas? And how would my life as a finance controller or a CFO be better doing that? And the third area is to drive revenue, right? So again, some great examples which were shared earlier in terms of, what is Malaysia doing in terms of driving AI adoption in bringing new companies, new startups, in these areas. But then again, as the ecosystem starts growing, you as a business head would be looking at, what does that mean to my business, right? And how can I drive some of these partnerships, some of these new innovations which are coming in within my business to drive new revenue models. It could be an online, e-commerce strategy which you're deploying, or it could be an international expansion you're looking at, or it could be also, leveraging the changes within the supply chain world which is happening around us to build new business models for your business units, right? The three big areas. Now, clearly, from a CFO standpoint, AI essentially promises four big areas, right? Or four major KPIs. One is to drive better customer experience, right? Extremely important in today's environment. Everything's moving to digital, everything's gone to digital. The experience which customers are achieving today becomes super important for them to stay connected with your brand or your organization. Second is, how does AI, help you drive better decision making, right? So you as a finance head of your organization are looking at, can I leverage, advanced analytics? Can I drive better modeling from a prediction standpoint? Can I get a better view of risk within my enterprise, leveraging, solutions around artificial intelligence to improvise my risk management strategies? And then there's also the cost angle, right? Can I drive better cost, improvement areas, cost optimization areas, leveraging AI in the space of, supply chain operations, in the space of better headcount planning, in the space of, better inventory management, for example. And then clearly we discussed the area of new products and services, right? So can AI give me better insights in terms of the new products and services which I plan to launch? And can it start giving me scenarios in terms of, what would it look like if this product gets launched in the market? So new product introduction, new service introduction, and so on. Now, it's also important to understand that there are two major areas of AI when we talk about AI, right? And AI has been here in the within the enterprise. In fact, AI has been there within your enterprise for more than a decade, right? There has been the traditional AI part of the entire world of AI, which we are in, where you can, leverage artificial intelligence to understand patterns, to recognize, any specific anomalies which are happening within your business, be in the space of maintenance, be in the space of, fraud management, be in the space of any business case where huge amounts of data needs to be processed and come out with analysis, come out with outliers, come out with anomalies, and start giving you those predictions. That's what we label as traditional AI. And then you have the world of generative AI, where the world basically, woke up one day and we had ChatGPT in front of us, and we all started essentially becoming, users of an amazing assisted authoring model, which starts making, life productive for us. And then the business application started adopting generative AI capabilities to automate business process, to bring, more Gen AI capabilities, where you could be more productive in driving better narratives, where information can be summarized, where a huge amount of data sets can be pulled out from the World Wide Web within and also from your enterprise and come out with better insights and better outcomes. So a lot of those areas are categorized within the space of generative AI, right? So two big paradigms which you need to think about. Now, in terms of adoption between analytical AI or traditional AI models, which has been always there for quite many years, and generative AI, clearly generative AI use cases have taken a rapid adoption compared to the classic AI, world. And the reasons are pretty much in front of us, right? It has a much bigger promise to drive better productivity, automate more routine tasks and so on. And hence the blue curve, which you see, is essentially where more than 65-70% of companies who were interviewed, and this was a statistical lot of about 1,500 plus companies, and this was a McKinsey survey where they have essentially called out that we are using at least one use case in the space of AI or generative AI essentially as part of our business. Clearly, there are still challenges as companies start adopting more and more of generative AI capabilities, in the space of defining a clear roadmap for AI adoption, having clear set of KPIs and goals defined, risk and compliance, which you folks are really worried about in terms of, what data sets is AI going to access from my enterprise? Are there data sets which AI is going to take out from my enterprise and take it to the LLMs or the large language models sitting somewhere outside my infrastructure? What would be the data governance like on those areas? If I activate a chatbot today, which user, what kind of user profile would have access to, those data sets? And then what kind of training do I need to roll out if I have to, leverage these use cases within my enterprise? So these are kind of challenges which, companies, business leaders like you are today kind of grappling with and going through that journey. So you're essentially not alone, in this process. Now, again, zooming in to specific use cases, which was essentially the topic of my presentation here, are three big areas, right? And the three big areas where AI can essentially drive better productivity in the finance, and also something which Oracle's been focusing on, are around giving you a space of touchless operations, right? Whether you're running core finance solutions, or you're running ERP footprints, or you're running your planning, budgeting, scenario analysis solutions, making businesses run operations in a more touchless model is one of the key goals of AI from a finance standpoint, right? Because that will drive productivity, it will reduce errors, it will improve, the jobs which you're going to do on a day-to-day basis, focusing more on analysis, focusing more on decision making versus running standard mundane processes and so on. Predictions, absolutely. US business leaders need to drive way more insights, way more, facing versus looking at insights, but then clearly looking at a whole amount of historical data. AI essentially from a finance standpoint, needs to be predictive and needs to start giving you those insights on which you can make better decisions, right? In the space of cash, in the space of liquidity, in the space of risk fraud management, and so on. And there are multiple use cases, which are available today, which we have also built as part of our ERP solutions to provide out of the box capabilities, right? And then connected actions, right? Connectivity in this world of and this age of digitization is extremely important. How do you connect with your banks? How do you connect with your trading partners? Can you leverage AI by driving better connectivity and collaboration with your customers, with your suppliers, and also within your employees, right? That is also the promise of AI. And that's also something which a finance professional would be very keen to look at. Now, one of the use cases which we see a lot of CXOs are today looking at are liquidity, cash forecasting, right? So driving better liquidity by bringing in predictive cash models. And again, it's something which is extremely important in any environment, especially in today's business environments, where, what if you have AI coming into your cash forecasting models to start giving you predictions, where AI can take a huge amount of data. It can ingest, insights from, receivables, from order management, looking at all your historical subscriptions, looking at the payment channels which you're going through, multiple, could be online, could be offline, the payroll salaries which you're making payments to, and also looking at your treasury and coming out with a beautiful model to say, this is what your forecast looks like. And there is 65%, predictability or confidence level in this forecast that, you will be cash positive in, say, week 4 or week 3. And hence you have the opportunity to go and have a conversation with your suppliers to negotiate trade discounts, for example. So these are examples where, we are driving models or AI in an insight to action driven areas, right? So that you can not just get insights leveraging AI, but you as a business head would also be recommended relevant guided actions to take as part of, your day-to-day business operations. Let's take an example, and I'm just going to stop and share again because I did not click on the audio button, which I'm going to do now. And I'm going to take you through a demonstration. I hope the audio is visible to you. It's a demonstration of, preparation of financial and management reports and how generative AI comes in to play a very important role in driving better productivity, better efficiency, and also driving predictions using the classic AI model in the work which you do on a day-to-day basis.
Financial planning and analysis function now. In this part of the
I hope the
demo,
audio
you'll see
is
how Oracle GenAI helps
Yes, the audio
FP&A
is
Director
okay.
David
Okay.
stay ahead in preparing for their quarterly business review narrative report. When David comes into work, he gets a few alerts and business insights from GenAI. One of them
You maybe
relates
need
to
to increase the
accrual
volume.
accounting entries from the ledger agent. In the narrative reporting app, GenAI has already prepared a draft of the QBR report using last quarter's template with Q2 data and details filled in. David browses through the GenAI draft of the QBR. It looks good with tight narrative text and the right visuals to tell the story. With that said, one of the insights points to shipment delays at the Berlin plant. David's management will want to know more about this operational issue, so he adds another section to the report. He adds the insight as a context for the news section. He tells Oracle GenAI to add a chart because a picture is worth 1,000 words. AI has generated both narrative and imagery. David is happy with the text, but he wants a different visual as the bar chart looks a little boring. GenAI offers some good choices. David goes with the bubble chart as it shows both shipment delays and associated dollar values. This new visual is much better. You can clearly see that the Berlin plant has a problem. There's lots of red in the last few weeks with high value orders getting backed up. David is happy with the news section in the report. In this brief demo, you've seen how Oracle GenAI has made the FP&A much more productive. No more fire drills over the weekend, putting the finance user very much in the driver's seat. FP&A stays ahead thanks to Oracle AI.
So essentially, you saw some, predictions coming out from the supply chain, which were then incorporated into the management reports, leveraging generative AI capabilities as well, right? And it all happened seamlessly. It happened with human in action, and hence there's a huge focus that, we always bring the element of human decision making as part of the AI use cases, which we are building as best practices, right? So that you are always on the forefront of the recommendations which the AI application is providing. Now, again, moving forward, right, AI is also extremely important from an analytics standpoint, and hence there are a lot of use cases which are coming in as part of, reporting and analytics. So reporting and analytics in today's world is not just providing you insights, but it's also truly giving you predictions. It's giving you actionable intelligence. It's also pulling out cross line of business analytics to say, hey, your profitability is going down in this particular business unit or this product category, but then these are the reasons which we believe, or the AI model can start predicting, these are the reasons we believe, why the profitability is going down. And then it can come out with relevant actions for you to apply from a human standpoint to say, this is what you can do. The models have become way smarter to start also giving you visualization layers, so you could visualize it in standard analytics dashboards. You can visualize it through chatbots. You can do it pretty much on the run on your mobile as you're moving forward. And hence, I think from a huge improvement standpoint, decision making comes into into the forefront as more and more AI starts getting into the analytics footprint of business. Now, moving on to, essentially a very important topic, which I wanted to call out, is the world of AI agents. We solve the mystery of authoring and bringing generative AI, helping you drive better authoring capabilities and giving you assisted authoring capabilities, in the last year or so, right? With ChatGPT, a lot of enterprise applications started adopting generative AI capabilities to help author reports, author statements, author, job requisitions, and so on. And you saw an example of authoring financial statements. The next wave of generative AI is essentially coming in where large language models start building smarter workflows, right? And if you today Google on Google, or if you do a chat GP around, talk to me about AI agents, you will see a lot of buzz around that. And the whole world of AI agents is essentially built on the context of getting rid of the older standard static business workflows and moving from that world to a completely intelligent workflow model where the large language models are smart enough to essentially go into a contextual engagement with the business user who's, let's say, interacting in that business process, trying to access some data, trying to access insights on a particular use case, trying to access data through different channels. Could be email, could be chatbots, could be third-party applications. And the large language model is essentially orchestrating, right, and giving those insights to you. It could be in the space of procure to pay. It could be in the space of understanding benefits through a chatbot of your health statement, or it could be also running and solving a complete maintenance problem in a maintenance organization where the large language model starts becoming kind of your helpful agent or your digital agent to start giving you insights on what's wrong with this image, what's wrong with this machine, what are the diagnoses which were done in such kind of a scenario in the last few years, crunching a lot of data, and what is the recommended guidance, what could that look like from a cost standpoint and repair quotation standpoint. And then the large language model or the AI agent can also generate a complete repair estimate for that process. So the world of AI agents is extremely agile, and it's coming into shape in multiple different use cases. So think about your entire enterprise, fully ignited by AI agents. Have a look at one of these demonstrations,
This
which
demo
I'm following
shows
through.
how AI agents in Oracle Cloud ERP can help drive secure, touchless automation of procure-to-pay processes. It starts with James, a sales VP in Japan, who urgently needs to purchase video production services. He takes a picture of the vendor's handwritten quote and emails it to the Document.io AI agent. Because the agent understands the business context and works with an industry-leading LLM to extract the relevant information from the attachment and email, Document I/O can take the next step and create a purchase requisition. The buyer receives a notification to review the requisition. He sees the original descriptions in Japanese as well as the English translation. Document I/O also generates charge account codes based on information and related details from the email. For the sub-account, the agent has insufficient confidence in the value predicted by AI and requests confirmation. The buyer verifies that the sub-account is correct and submits the requisition. Video production goes well. James confirms receipt of services and the supplier sends an invoice which triggers a workflow in accounts payables. In the Payable Manager screen, we see that the Document I/O agent automatically processes invoices in a variety of file and document formats. The Payables Manager receives a notification in relation to 3 invoices from a new supplier that was recently onboarded. Document I/O processes the invoices despite the supplier using a new file format. However, 2 attributes require review. The Payables Manager reviews the ship to address and the predicted section is highlighted in the XML file. The company has receiving points. The correct ship to address is proposed and she is able to confirm the selection based on the 9-digit zip code. The line description is generated by the agent based on information from both the purchase order and the invoice file. She also accepts the proposed description. The invoice is now complete. The other 2 invoices leverage the new mapping, and the transactions are also successfully processed. A new insight highlights an early payment discount opportunity. The Payables Manager immediately initiates the payment. She notices that the supplier requested a special format for the payment. The Document I/O agent generates the new payment format and remittance advice based on the template provided by the supplier. She reviews the payment instructions and the remittance advice that had been generated and submits the payment for approval. And that's it. By capturing and generating documents,
So I'll keep moving. That's essentially the power of AI, which you saw in action in one of those embedded use cases we have built in our Fusion ERP cloud. And it automated the entire agentic workflow to drive an end-to-end procure-to-pay process, right? And it's touchless, it's predictive, it's intelligent. It also has a lot of human touch involved where you need to make your decisions, right? And that's essentially where the business benefits are coming out from a AI in finance standpoint, where, companies like us, customers who have worked with us, they have driven efficiency in banking transactions. They have driven efficiencies in employee hour reduction as more and more AI business functions start coming into, your business processes. Clearly, there's a huge benefit in the space of supply chain, where we have seen customers' planning cycles, have improvised by 70% plus or so. And we have customers also in Malaysia, right, like Western Digital and all, who have achieved these efficiencies within their supply chain. And there's a huge impact on HR and, service management areas also from a customer care standpoint, where a lot of these processes will start bringing in efficiencies and automation. Clients like AirAsia, right there in Malaysia, have been adopting a lot of these generative AI capabilities within the Fusion Cloud solutions, within their ERP, within their planning, budgeting, solutions, and they have started driving a lot of benefits as they continue to roll out capabilities around, embedded AI applications and automated agents in the place. So I think with that, I summarize my session, and pass it over to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sunil, for the informative presentation. It is my pleasure to introduce our final presenter before the panel session, Mr. Yap Sau Shiung, Head of Digital and Tax Technology Partner, PwC Malaysia. Mr. Yap oversees the firm's digital function, including overseeing delivery of solutions, digital and data services. He also manages products and platform development for PwC Marketplace, an online B2B marketplace featuring both PwC built and homegrown solution for local startups and SMEs. Mr. Yap, the floor is now yours.
Thank you very much, Nurul. Good morning, everyone. So the next 20 minutes or so allow me to do a little bit of deep dive in terms of how AI or generative AI can be applied with a particular slant for public practice. But before I go into that, Victor earlier on shared with you like a macro perspective of technology, digital and AI adoption from a national perspective. And he also shared the national agenda and various programs driven by different agencies within the government construct. And then Sunil shared areas where AI use cases can be applied in the financial process, things like budgeting, forecasting, procure to pay process, and very nice video to show you very specific examples. So Victor and Sunil, thank you for sharing those. So if I were to just quickly then move on, whilst we talk a lot about AI and generative AI, what exactly are these forms of technology, right? So in the middle of the page there, you see several layers, if you like, from AI, machine learning, deep learning, and the lowest component there, you see generative AI. Now, I won't go into much technical details, but I think it's important for people to recognize the difference between AI as an umbrella terminology, which essentially means the ability for a set of code or algorithms that mimics the way a human thinks, whereas generative AI is one that leverages natural language processing, which allows you to converse with the technology and create content, right? It's not to say that one is better than the other. I think it's a question of the particular use case and the outcomes that you want to achieve out of adopting these technologies. And then that sort of provides you some guidance in terms of what is the right technology to adopt. I would say that over the last, if you go on to the next page then, over the last 2 years, the evolution of AI has been such that from AI, we have generative AI, but within the space of generative AI, we went from pretty much a text-based user experience. So for those of you who use things like Copilot or ChatGPT, you literally prompt it by writing in a way that a human would speak. So that's very text-based. And then it went to very much multimodal capability. So instead of writing a prompt, you can actually speak, use your voice or voice to text capabilities. And these days, you also find many of these technologies also offer video and image as input. So that's what we call multimodal. And then in more recent times, there's this phenomenon of AI agents, which essentially means that you can string together a task for the AI to actually execute on your behalf. And then, these days on the right-hand side, there's move towards more autonomous agents, which is what people term as agentic AI. So I just want to highlight the quick, very rapid evolution of AI. We do know that, it is difficult to keep track of what's happening. But the one key takeaway important for everyone to remember is that we should be treating AI as a companion or a virtual assistant to humans, because intrinsically as humans, there are certain traits that AI is yet to achieve, I would say, which is things like emotional intelligence. Some would argue that the social quotient, the SQ, IQ, EQ, now SQ is increasingly more important as we humanize the use of technology. There is ethical judgment, there's experience, the human values, and also the spirit of creativity and innovation. So if used in pairs, it presents a very powerful proposition of how AI is actually adopted to drive business outcomes. Now, if you move to the next page, then, so particularly within the space of generative AI, at the end of the day, what is it capable of doing? As you've seen earlier from Sunil's presentation, it's able to do some level of prediction or very good level of prediction. But in terms of general patterns of use, you if you look at just the top bar of the page that you're seeing, things like summarization. So you can upload documents and allow it to prompt it to summarize things for you. Deep retrieval is about obtaining information of the document you upload all through the internet. Transform content or augment the outputs that you have initially created. And Q&A dialogue, this is you can query documents, you can actually have a conversation to arrive at an outcome that you want. And also net new creation, this is creating brand new content. There are some examples there written, but I won't go through in great details, but it's just important, the key takeaway is that generative AI has these capabilities. The question is therefore, where and when do you use these capabilities, right, in practice? So next page, I would say generally, when you think about generative AI, just think of it as a virtual assistant. So in the past, or those without generative AI, you would execute the task manually. You would write emails yourself. You would author documents, edit documents yourself. You do manual searches over Google or things like that. And there's a lot of manual filing, paper filing to be done. Now imagine if you layer that same level of process, same type of processes with technology such as generative AI. So writing an email as example, you can prompt the generative, I just want to send this key message, please write it in a professional tone, and it will author something automatically, and for you to then edit that document, same as any other document, writing proposals, preparing notes of meeting, preparing for presentations, for board meetings, things like that. Searching for documents or searching for specific areas within the document. So for example, those of you who do a fair bit of contract review, for example, understanding what are the liability clauses, what are indemnity clauses, effects of termination. Instead of reading the agreement, which for those non-legal background, it is a challenging task, but generative AI can be assistant to actually pull you those processes. So some examples there. So the way we like to think about it is AI is not meant to replace, but meant to augment human capabilities. So next page, what I want to cover is really broadly from a practice perspective, where I think Sunil also alluded to this as well. What are the key sort of thematic areas where generative AI can be applied? First is client service delivery. Now, for those of you in retail, for example, if you think about the life cycle of a customer, so customer acquisition, and then customer engagement, and then customer exit, or hopefully not so much customer exit, but the challenge is how do you keep your customers engaged? What is the best way, quickest way to actually acquire clients? For those in practice, how do you in public practice, how do you use technologies to actually improve your existing client experience and using those experiences as leverage to win new customers, right? So for example, would you be able to provide your deliverables in a faster and a better quality manner? Are you able to harness the data that you have internally within the organization to actually present new insights that clients have not seen before? And the middle piece is around risk management and compliance. Now, when we talk about compliance, it is not necessarily only complying with statutory obligations, but also your internal policies, rules, and such. For example, all of us go through expense claims, right? So when someone submits an expense claim, what is the process of approving such a claim? Is there, there are opportunities for fraud, for example. So how do you use technologies such as AI and generative AI to actually do some form of fraud detection? Maybe your tolerance level in terms of amount that require 1 or 2 levels of approval. What is a tolerable error for margin? All that can be detected automatically as opposed to manually. And then finally, the this is a cosplay, right? For the same amount of resource, can the workforce do more? And that's a question of productivity. So how do you automate certain processes, replace manual tasks with automation, and thereby freeing up the time in order to do more of the same things, or innovate into new things that has not been done before? So thematically, these are the sort of three main areas, I would say. I want to go deep down a little bit into more specific examples, and I need to see the screen a little bit more because the text is very small. So under the three buckets, let me call out some examples. Chatbots, right? So I think many of you have experienced the previous generation of chatbots, which is what we call rule-based. If a question is like this, answer it this way. Whereas with generative AI, and natural language processing underneath it with LLMs, powering that capability. The opportunity here is around client customer experience. So for example, instead of a menu-driven set of questions that you ask your customers to ask, the opportunity is for the customers to actually converse with the chatbot, have a conversation essentially. The chatbot can also be used internally. So for a staff to query what are the HR policies, say I lost my laptop, what do I do now? That kind of internal conversations that you might have. In the middle piece there, again, let me highlight risk management. You're talking about contract reviews, using data for fraud detection, and also some form of alerts and reminders where certain thresholds are met, right? Things like deadlines coming due or past overdue, those kind of examples. In the next page, so I'll leave that with you. Now, when it comes to adoption of generative AI or AI generally, there needs to be a balance, because you have heard about the vast potential it can bring in terms of productivity, augmenting staff capabilities. You also need to recognize that there are challenges and risks. So one of the main challenges is the data, because data is the lifeline of any AI solution. So without data quality, there is a risk that the outcomes of the AI application can be bad or misused. What is the way to choose the right mix of technology or right technology in the first place? Then what is the risks associated with AI, and therefore what is the risk management posture that you need to introduce? The challenge will also be your workforce. Are they ready? How much of upskilling is required for them to optimize use, or to firstly understand what the capabilities are? And then understanding what the challenges are, then is a matter of identifying what are the risk areas. And typically, these are the topics of discussion under risk, which is data privacy and security. I believe one of the questions posed in Pigeonhole is around that topic. The fear of job displacements, how do you address that? How do you manage that risk? And the use of generative AI in particular. The big question here is over-reliance, right? How much of reliance can you place on generative AI outputs? How much of human in the loop that is required in terms of governing your outputs, particularly in the service industry? And the potential misuse of these technologies can actually have a very sort of negative outcome. So understanding challenges and risks, as well as the potential, you need to have a balanced view to determine where do you actually start, how do you scale. Which brings me to the next page, which is the technology. So I would loosely categorize AI technologies or platforms into sort of two broad categories. One is general or multi-purpose tools. Things like ChatGPT Enterprise, Copilot are some examples. You could use it pretty much like the patterns of use, I say, so summarization of documents, Q&A of a document, create content for you. You can use that in any context. But then there's also very specific domain use you see on the right-hand side. These applications are trained specifically in domains. So you look at the ContractPort AI, ICERTIS, and Harvey. ContractPort AI and ICERTIS, they are very specific applications around contracting or contract lifecycle, whereas Harvey is a very good example of a technology that is trained specifically on law, whether it is statute or case law. So that the language used in there, lawyers particularly love these kind of technologies because in their specific domain. It is also important, as Sunil was sharing, within ERPs, these technology providers are already infusing AI and generative AI within the solution, the likes of Workday, Oracle that you see earlier, SAP, Dynamics, Epicor, many of these applications, and even the smaller sort of constructs of ERPs are already including this. So I think for consideration is really which and what is the right mix of the technologies that you need is really dependent on the outcomes that you want. So I think my time is actually close to it, but in the next page, I just want to leave you with a few thoughts, right? It is clear that you need to act now. The question is where. So I think the first question to ask is, where are we now in terms of AI adoption? Are you a novice? Are you experimenting? Are you optimizing the use, or are you sort of leading in your respective industry? So some form of assessment, understanding what is it, where is it you're at, and then measure that against the sort of outcomes that you want. What are the KPIs from a business strategy perspective, and that to give you a good direction. And then how do I start? Where do I start? How do I then scale in the future? But from a workforce perspective, it's very important to recognize people are impacted, right? It's not only the processes and tasks, but the workforce. So how do you cultivate a culture of curiosity, innovation? How do you inject that? Because without this sense of curiosity and innovation, adoption will be hampered. So it's a big question around adoption. So I just want to leave it at that. Some food for thought. Hopefully that was sort of useful from a practical perspective, how organizations can adopt what are the key considerations for future thought. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Yap, for the insightful presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, please be informed that we will have a Q&A sessions at the end of the panel session. You can log on to www.pigeonhole.at and type in the event passcode MDM2025 to post your questions. Let's continue the program with the panel session on technology in practice, artificial intelligence. The moderator for this session will be Professor Dr. David Asirvatham, Chair of DTIC MIA, and joining him as panelists are once again Mr. Sunil, Mr. Victor, and also Mr. Yap. Over to you, Professor David.
Okay, thank you. I think we saw the three presentation, a very, very interesting presentation. I think Mr. Victor, from MDEC gave a perspective of a Malaysia, at the Malaysian level, and how tech is used, or AI and Gen AI is used in Malaysia. And he also highlighted some of the things, that's happening. One interesting point is 99% of the companies will adopt, AI or Gen AI within the next 3 years. And there are 500,000 tech jobs have been created. That's interesting data for Malaysia. And Mr. Sunil gave how we can use AI, and he gave practical examples, demo how they can use actually AI in their business. And he highlighted, I think, 3 key areas: productivity, drive, new ways of working in your business, and how to generate revenue and also grow the company. So those are some interesting information. And Mr. Yap from PwC gave an overview of the difference between what is AI, machine learning, deep learning, Gen AI, and so on, and how Gen AI is used mostly for prediction, okay, summarization, content creation, and so on. And also he highlighted that it is a virtual assistant, okay, for us, okay, and we need to use it. So now we move on to the question, okay. So as you all know, all right, AI is no longer a futuristic business. It's increasingly become a practical reality, okay, that touches, okay, nearly every business, and accounting is no exception. And my first question is, there's a lot of talk about AI, and is it a hype or is it real? Because a lot of the SMEs have yet to adopt AI, so they are looking at whether is it time or maybe I can do it later and so on. So so all the businesses talking about it with reference to the accounting profession. Is the digital transformation happening on the ground? Is it already impacting the accounting practice? And is this real or is a hype? Maybe Mr. Yap, you want to start rolling?
I think the quick answer to that is as real as can be, right? So it goes without saying. So some of you may have read a research by a Harvard professor. The sharing was that humans with AI will replace humans without AI, and that is a very stark call for action. In that, it's no longer an option, right? So you can see so many examples all over the world, even locally, ourselves within PwC, we are transforming the way we do things by way of actually implementing AI and generative AI solutions. So as real as that, it's as real as having your iPhone talking to ChatGPT. It's our everyday use in our computers in our organization. So as I said, as real as can be.
Okay. And the other panelists want to add on?
Yeah, I might just add that 2022, 23 has been about awareness. People are figuring out what this tech is all about, what this hype, as you put it, all about. But 2024, 25 is about adoption and achieving business outcomes. Right.
What about any input from Sunil and Victor?
Yeah, I think if I can go next, Yap mentioned a pretty valid point. It's all about adoption this year, and that's what we see from a tech, trend standpoint. We have a lot of customers who have already adopted, generative AI within the space of finance, accounting, analytics, and so on. And we see that trend only increasing now because it's kind of giving that complementary business environment, right, to the let's say to the humans, right, with the AI ability around them to make better decisions. And that's essentially what's driving adoption, especially the generative AI use cases. I mean, what I see is the uptake has been just phenomenal. Clearly, there are risks which were also called out, in this particular session. But then, technologists, companies are essentially working through to navigate those risks and see how do we put kind of sufficient guardrails around those risks, which which absolutely will be there, but there are mitigation strategies now being put together by companies.
Okay, great. Any other feedbacks from anyone else? So you have heard it, right? It is real and it's really happening on the ground, right? And it's time that we look into this technology and adopt this technology quickly. My next question is with reference to the accounting profession, what specific technology or applications are we talking about? Is it about simple automation or daily operations, or are we talking about more advanced automation? In this industry. So where does this AI and Gen AI comes into? Simple operations we are automating, or more advanced level of automation? Maybe Mr. Sunil, because you're more experienced in terms of the tools.
Yeah. No, I think I think pretty much all the panelists spoke about,
Yeah.
the different evolutions of artificial intelligence very well. And the space which I see more and more relevant from an accounting standpoint is the space of, predictions, where we have areas around, better liquidity management, risk management as some key use cases, right? Fraud management, analysis coming up. In the space of generative, yes, the mundane tasks of automating, GL journals you saw in some of the demos which I ran through, bringing in the right journal descriptions in accounting is also coming in. The major transformative value which AI is bringing in is then combining the predictive AI, the generative AI, and converging all that into the agentic workflows, right? So you would hear more and more from technology providers around agents, around the world of AI agents, and how these business processes are kind of now getting essentially ignited, right, with the world of predictive and generative AI capabilities. I think that's a big area, and that's where, Professor, you spoke about ESG. We see a lot of adoption of AI, AI as a technology within ESG use cases, also in the space of scenario planning, especially in these times, where bringing more and more artificial intelligence in putting together better scenario plans and predicting better scenarios for organizations becomes extremely important.
I
I
would
think you
agree.
showed a
Also,
very interesting demo where you upload a receipt in any language and it translates, captures the data. Not only that, it carries out various processes, and eventually even probably generate the final reports and all that, right? I mean, in your system, right?
Okay.
So the entire cycle, of receipt claims and all those things or invoicing is completely done by AI, right?
That's it.
Other panel members, you want to add on to this? Okay.
yeah, Prof, so I just want to add on, it really depends also on where organizations are at, right, in terms of the maturity level of the adoption scale. So some may think that, I suppose the understanding of what maturity level, how rudimentary or how advanced technologies are also depending on where the starting point is. So I would say for the organizations where haven't really started the journey would be around identifying what are the quick wins that you can put in place for quick, small automation, I'll put it that way, before you scale it to the more advanced technologies that can actually raise the level of productivity and effective business outcomes.
Yeah. So you rightly said, I think the big players are already adopting it. I think the SMEs have some difficulty where to start. And you pointed out that, how to start small and then grow this. That's important. Yes, Victor, you want to say?
Yeah. So I think as I mean, if we put the profession aside, right? If we start to think like we run a business today, right? For any businesses, there is always two things that you want to drive: whether you generate more revenue, or you be more efficient, or reduce the cost, right? So those are few dynamics that any of the business owner will have to think and pivot for all the time, right? So I just give an example in my presentation earlier is that to the business of AI, right? So let's say I put AI and then help me to improve my business efficiency. So one of the way to do things, right? If I am an organization that dealing with a lot of volume of processing, right? So nevertheless, I think the volume processing is always a problem because there's meant to be like example of human error to do so, right? So because human have limitations of doing processing with large volume, right? So whether you're manufacturing or whether you're dealing with a large volume of data, I mean a large cycle of things, right? So basically, is that AI can be trained to what we call that. To evaluate or to assess all these business needs, right? So if it's a repeating task, and then if there's a pattern to it, then those are the immediate things that the AI can actually help to help the business to process and make it more efficient and make it more accurate and reduce the risk of human error, right? So that is in terms of process. Then the next thing is that to identify area of error or fraud or even incidents that we want to reduce, right? So that's a kind of reducing the risk, right? So one example I just picked up earlier is that if I'm a manufacturer, right? So one of the compliance that I need to probably, or if I'm a construction site or any of the public facilities, I may have to comply to this, what you call that, occupational human safety kind of standards, right? So the challenge will be is that you walk into any of these organizations today, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's a construction site, or any of the sites that that you visit, you always see that there's a sign that safety comes first, right? But problem is that who is the one that monitor all these safety comes first processes, right? So hence is that if we can put in AI elements, those are the potential tools that we can use to reduce the risk, because when we put technology and put AI inside, then there's a lot of monitoring could be done 24/7. If there's any risk that we discover, those are the exercise that we can put into place to train the party that involved, right? So those are the risk governance process that we can use to reduce some of this risk. So as I said earlier, this is to the business, right? Hence, I think also give example, right? If I don't have this kind of thing that I want to address, then but I want to make sure that I can serve my customer better, right? So that is a AI use cases for the business, right? So maybe I want to make sure that I have a certain service level agreement with my client, then I make sure that I respond in time, right? Giving them the right information when they need it. Then AI can be trained to be able to deliver those kind of exercise, right? So that is for the business usage. So as I give example earlier, as a chatbot will be something that organization can immediately implement, because we are dealing with not only the client in Malaysia, you're probably dealing with a client at different time zone as yours, right? So customer service can be improved by using chatbot or some of these tools that businesses can put in place, right? So and also another example that we are dealing with the internet today, right? Whereby services run 24/7. It's very important to make sure that service interruption is one of the area that we try to reduce. So AI can be put in place to do all this preventive maintenance well. So we don't have to have a longer downtime. All this downtime could be managed accordingly, especially in a manufacturing environment, right? Or services that dealing with publics. So those are the what we call that AI. Put it, AI is a tool. Okay, don't make the things very complicated. AI is a tool, but where you want to use this tool is to the business, for the business, or compliance. So I think that that give you a boxes of things that you want to address, and which one will give you the better outcome. Are you trying to generate more revenue, reduce costs, or be more efficient? I think those are thinking that any of the businesses owner will just need to have that formula. Then you know what kind of AI tools you need to apply. And of course, data set is very important. If you don't have the data, then probably is that you start to you have to digitize all your assets before you can go into AI. I mean, some of these processes require AI to do so. Okay.
That's interesting. I think you covered quite a bit. And the last part that you touched is data. I think this is a very important aspect for all organizations. Now, if you want to train an AI model, data is vital, and accurate, clean data is important. So that you can train your model, right, based on your local data. Now, we understand that there is Gen AI, where it is trained on public data. But if you want to use it in your organization, you need to train with your own data, and that's possible, right? So that's an interesting concept, okay? So that the machine understands about your organization. Okay, we will move on to the next question. Okay, from your perspective, okay, what is the current status of AI adoption within the accounting and finance industry in Malaysia? Are we seeing a widespread usage, or are they just experimenting, or are they just at the very early stage of development? Maybe who would like to start? Maybe Sunil would like to start.
Yeah, sure, Professor. So look, I think just to extend on the conversation which is running from an SME standpoint or companies which are in Malaysia, what we need to understand is not every organization needs to go and run, training models or their own LLMs, and neither do they need to run, LLMs as a service, because a lot of technology which is coming in today is coming in with applied business use cases, right? In the space of generative AI, or AI agents, the way you saw some of those areas in the session I covered. So what that means is it kind of accelerates adoption for SMEs, especially if they are going to subscribe to some of their business applications, be a procurement application or be an ERP application. And that kind of helps them also leverage the data sets from these core business applications versus trying to go and build, complex data strategies around how do we manage this end to end. Clearly, data is a huge area to look at. Risk and data governance also go along with your data strategies. But more and more as enterprise applications are coming out with pre-built use cases around AI, they are already subscribed to large language models, which are clearly trained. And they have also used a lot of investments, in getting these models further enhanced for business application usage with the right guardrails, with the right augmentation, with the right contextual data insights, which can come back to these users in the space of finance or HR or procurement or supply chain. So that fast tracks the process of adoption for business users, even in Malaysia. And I think that's the context we want to apply to SMEs and organizations. Then you would have a faster adoption curve. That's
you are saying
my
that,
view.
so you are saying that they are ready to be adopted, just plug and play.
Yes, pretty
Yeah.
much. These are plug
That's
and play, and the
interesting.
tools which are coming in, especially from a agentic framework standpoint, are essentially low-code tools. So you could build objects, you could build agents on your own, and if you're a smart business analyst, you can actually go and do this in an enterprise application today. So there are tools which, for example, we have, which allows you to do that, and that should fast-track adoption. You don't need to go and train large language models. You don't need to 100% definitely buy and invest in GPUs. You can leverage business applications to do that today, right? To automate a lot of business functions.
Yeah, I think Sunil brought some key points for especially SMEs, where you can just plug and play these tools, all right? Which is, and even you don't have to know coding, Python and all that. They're all no code, drag and drop, kind of build the business flow, and then you get the applications done. Is that right? I mean, Sunil?
That's right. That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
And maybe Victor, from the MDEC perspective, I mean, where do the Malaysian businesses, especially we are referring to SMEs, where do they stand in terms of the adoption of AI?
Okay, so I think is that naturally is that when we talk about SME, or I mean we don't talk about the smaller one, right? The micro may not be the conversation,
Yeah, that's right.
Right? So micro probably use some of the common tools that what the other speaker just mentioned, right? But if I take an example like one of the largest industry for the country that contribute a lot of GDP and a lot of job opportunity, right? Manufacturing sector, right? So today is that as I said earlier, example. It's an indigenous industry that we are famous with, right? So we are proud of one of the largest E&E producer for the global stage, right? But I think we have to be mindful also is that the way that we do it 30 years or 40 years ago, I think we should not be doing the same thing as of today, because we're dealing with very competitive landscape, right? Especially the world is moving so fast. So I can take an example like maybe a manufacturing sector like palm oil. Right, we are one of the largest palm oil export industry, right? But this industry is very classic in terms of the way they do business, right? The model, the infrastructure, the equipment they use are quite similar. But I think that they are facing the challenge is that they also have the one that actually produce the way to produce and the outcome they sell, there's a price to it, so it's quite volatile also in come to the industry, right? So a very typical example is that one of the challenges that probably facing today is that what's the right price to sell? If I'm one of these palm oil industry producer that I produce palm oil, right? So you know that the price fluctuate by the industry demand. So but how do I know what price to sell? Whether I say too high or I say too low? Then probably is that some data analytic or AI component need to place in is that what was the price decision for the last 10, 20 years, or what's the last 5 years, how market is driving this price. So then I will sell at the most optimum price. So AI can be used to solve this problem that the industry is facing. Then naturally is that if I look into my efficiency of producing the result or the yield, right? So maybe it's the fruits is very, very important. So before I process everything, how do I make sure that I process the right fruits to make sure that I have the maximum, most optimal output of it? Then the AI can be put in place to do what we call the visual learning, to pick up the right fruits when it's loaded in a factory. So AI can help to solve some of these process selection of the fruits when it comes to processing, right? So that's one stage. Then the second stage will be is that if I'm processing the fruits right now, how do I get the most optimum result during the process of the fruits? Maybe certain temperature need to be complied to, maybe a machine need to be functioning at the most optimum time to make sure that I use the most minimum electricity, because it is a combination between diesel and the TNB power, right? You know that when a factory is that they use a certain power at a certain time, the cost is higher, right? So those are the components that public AI can put in place to make sure that they run at the most optimum cost with a maximum output, right? So that's in terms of processing. Then the next thing will be is that when it comes to logistics side, how do I make sure that I arrange the logistic in time when I produce the fruits, right? So those also potentially AI can put in place. So all these things that I just mentioned here today is that there is a business case to it. Any of the manufacturing is the same, right? Whether they want to solve the problem when they get the raw material during the processing, when they want to sell it logistically, how they arrange. So component-wise, they have the same problem statement. It's just that which businesses will go first, right? So in this case, is that I think we are looking at a selected industry like palm oil. I think that's one of the biggest sector that we are one of the biggest producer for the country, for the world, right? So palm oil is another one of the area. Then potentially in any other E&E sector also, like example, when it comes to E&E processing, right? So when we're dealing with chips, how do I make sure that low quality chips or chips that have faulty elements can be what we call that discard from the processing process? So we have a local company, or we have a very mature industry that already have this capability to do this kind of work, whereby any of the low quality product of E&E that can be dropped out immediately before, or can be reduced immediately from the processing cycle. So I think it's just the nature of if I just put manufacturing in one sector, I think we are quite we just have to scale that investment into the manufacturing sector. Then we take the subject to something that we want to move, then we want to grow very fast, like food agriculture, right? So we know that the one of the challenges of food is always is that how do we make sure that we have food security for the country, right? The population is growing, right? The food of import dependency is high, right? So how do we make sure that we have substantial food security for the country? So one of the areas that we want to grow in the country actually is to use AI to do the fertilizations. Okay, how do we make sure the right amount of what you call that water and fertilizer has been put in place, right? So that's also another area that AI can help in order to grow the agriculture sector. And what else? Okay, we have touched agriculture, we've touched the manufacturing, the traditional industry like services, right? Malaysia is known for what we call that digital services, whether it's in the back end of like finance, HR. So I think a lot of tools can be used into that area to help our GBS business. And nevertheless, one of the area that we think we should go very fast is in come to the subject of security, right? So today is that I think everyone is very familiar with Security Operations Center. The challenge of Security Operations Center today is that the incidence is growing, or even network operations center, the incident is growing. But the problem is that we cannot grow as fast as the incident when it comes to human investment or human capital investment. So some of these elements we have to put in place is how do we make sure that all the analytic of incidents could be processed by AI in order to make sure that our resources that we invest into, that can actually look into the most important thing to be addressed in the operation of all these businesses. So I just give a few examples of manufacturing, agriculture, GBS. I think those are a few examples that I think not only the enterprise, I think also the SME are seriously looking into, and we have a lot of good use cases to it today, right? So the other follower maybe is that I don't think we have we don't have a dipstick for the sector today. Is that which sector is the driver, which sector is a follower. But I think that those are the few examples that we can use in terms of agriculture, manufacturing, digital services. I think it's all we will want to grow the sector of healthcare, right? Healthcare is another what we call that sector we want to grow by using AI technologies. And of course, the government efficiency is one of the fundamental things that we should be doing in order to serve the public better, right? That's why we have the Ministry of Digital been setting up to drive this area of interest with the government, right? So I hope that gives something idea is that from the macro level government perspective, which industry that we want to be involved in, and then some of this example I just give are very helpful for the industry to understand is that all the businesses today is that they need to understand is that what they're trying to solve. Is it we try to solve something internally for the business, or we want to solve something for the customer, or we want to solve something for the compliance. So maybe those three buttons, if you know which one to press, I think the adoption can grow very, very soon.
Okay, thank you. All right,
Yeah.
that's a lot of information for the audience. Great. So the other one is moving on is that what would be your advice to the Malaysian accounting professionals, as we can see that more and more tasks is being taken over by Gen AI? So we saw some concrete examples just now. What else will be computerized? Because if you look at the OpenAI report, as well, and a research done by OpenAI as well as Pennsylvania University, they quoted that a large percentage, more than almost 90% of the task can be taken, accounting tasks can be taken over by Gen AI in the next 5 years or so. So that's scary. I mean, but I'm not saying it will replace accountants, definitely not, because accountants will have to do some other task, something else more with higher cognitive ability, right? So what is your advice to the accountants? What they should do now? What are the things that should they look at and move on? What are the tasks that they should do using Gen AI, and what are the tasks that they should do by the professionals? Mr. Yap, maybe you are more familiar with the
I think that relates to, I think, one of the top questions in Pigeonhole, right? As in, what are the opportunities and threats, right? So I think it's a question of how do accountants now increase the value in terms of supporting the sort of the business outcomes, and also contributes towards the strategy of the business as a whole. So Sunil shared, the possibilities of predictive analytics, better forecasting, providing insights based on historical data. So those things can help inform the business strategies and direction. It could also influence how logistics is being played if you're in the supply chain industry, or those who are dependent on supply chain. So it's areas like this. So essentially, how do you use this technology to actually augment the value? And that's where the real opportunity lies, right? But at the same sort of token, there's also challenges that I've shared before. How do you upskill yourself and the team? How do you keep pace of the technology? How do you govern the data to make sure that it is of good quality? How do you secure the data and things like that, right? So there's a big piece around people readiness, upskilling or reskilling, as well as data governance and management. From a more operational perspective, but more strategic perspective is how do you add value? How do you become a more strategic, move from being an accountant to a strategic business partner to the organization to drive the strategy forward?
Okay, and I'm mindful of time. Maybe one last question. What are the biggest challenges or barriers to the accounting firms in Malaysia, and in terms of adopting the Gen AI or AI?
Yeah, generally it's figuring out where to start, what to invest in, how fast do you need to scale, and I think you need to look at the infrastructure readiness, people readiness, what the risk management frameworks within the organization. Those areas that are, I would say, the more difficult areas to look at, because the technology is ready and available. It's a matter of, I suppose, the will and the appetite for investment. Because tech is ready, as soon as all you need to do is subscribe, right? And you're ready to rock and roll. But in the manner of how you rock and roll is to govern the use, right?
Yes.
And figuring out from a starting point, how do you scale?
Sure. All right. Victor or Sunil, you want to add on to that? Anything else? No. Okay. Let's move on to, yeah, go ahead. Okay, let's move on to the questions from the floor. All right. We heard from the panel. Now we move on to the question to the floor. Some of the questions have been answered. For example, what are the potential opportunities and threats? We have answered that during our conversation. We'll move on to one question here with 25 words. Due to the black box paradox, there are concerns about accountability and trust in the use of AI. How can we best ensure that the output generated by AI are accurate and reliable for public use? Anyone want to take this question?
Maybe I take a first step at it. I think there are two main parts to this, right? One is the choice of technology. So I'll give you an example, right? So those of you who are using ChatGPT, the public version, right? You pay $20 a month kind of thing. That one has high potential of data lake, because the prompts and the documents you upload actually goes into this whole public sphere from which the generative AI will learn from. Versus something like ChatGPT Enterprise, which is a more contained environment where the information that is fed into it will not be shared outside of your organization, right? So that's the choice of technology is important. The other equally important is this whole concept of human in the loop. As I always say, these technologies, generative AI in particular, are your virtual assistants. And you need to ensure that the outputs must have human in the loop. Because you're talking about not only accuracy and reliability, but is it in the right context that you want to communicate your ideas or your propositions or whatever that is, being reported. So incorporating a review process is very key. Having transparent conversations around where AI is used or generative AI is used in the process of generating the output, that's important as well. Because it's very easy to take outputs from generative AI as final, and off you go. But if you do that, you're carrying a big risk, right? So I think the technology consideration as well as human in the loop are key to address or to mitigate the risk.
Yeah, I think you hit the right on the spot. Right, the human loop is important, right?
Yeah.
So the AI can generate and give you a lot of information or do the analysis. I think at the end, here I'm referring to the accountant is responsible to ensure the accuracy and reliability of the final output, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's answered. We move on to the next question. Which areas in accounting do you think will benefit the most from AI? And which areas are at risk of being overlooked? Anyone want to take this? Any of the panelists want to take this question?
Yeah, I think maybe I'll give it a shot. I think pretty much most of the areas from a finance standpoint are being looked at to leverage AI, right? Whether it's predictive or generative. We've discussed use cases around forecasting capabilities. There's a lot of focus in scenario planning now, especially in these times. It was a hot topic during COVID as well. So there's a lot of AI which is coming in, planning better scenarios. There's also focus in financial closing processes. So, how fast can we close books? I think that's a big KPI which accountants are tracking. So there's again application of AI in there to automate processes. You saw an example to also automate reconciliation functions so that you spend less time on exception. You spend less time on transactions, and you get better in exception management. A lot of reporting capabilities which finance needs is also getting a lot of attention from the world of AI. So we could drive insights, we could drive actions, right? So I can't really think of areas which are being overlooked at this point of time. I think most of the core finance topics are being covered. There's a huge focus on data governance also. So the more autonomous capabilities we can build within databases, within analytics, and we make AI kind of invisible in these technologies is the goal of enterprise software vendors, right? So that businesses can then focus on business use cases. They could go in a very simple way, configure some of the areas which could have been overlooked and build their own agentic workflows on top of those flows. So those development platforms are also becoming way more simpler. Like I posted a link around, AI Agent Studio. Have a look at that. That gives a very good example of the way technology has moved now for businesses, especially finance and accounting, to just go and build their own agentic workflows, right? So that kind of gives you again a flavor of how how adoption can improve, but then how also AI can be applied on areas which, let's say, we could have overlooked.
Okay.
Yeah, and another way to look at it in terms of because benefit to one may be different from another. I think where is your starting point is where the question is, right? Is it a procure to pay cycle that you need to improve on? Is it order to cash? Is it reporting? Is it the ability to forecast better? So which are the areas? And then you kind of scale from there, right? So I think the starting point is important. What is it that you're trying to solve for? But I think that the part of the question about risk being overlooked, to me, I think the data quality is important. When it comes to specifically financial data, do you trust the data in the first place? And what measures can you, or what processes can you put in place in order to govern the data such that the quality of data can be trusted? And then from there, then you can trust the tools to actually process the data for you. So I think that one is very understated. I wouldn't say overlooked, but that is certainly an area because at the end of the day, it is reliant on data.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think the risk is actually the data. And if you feed in biased data, you will get a biased answer as well.
Correct.
So the data is critical. Yeah. And this data need to be collected, captured, cleaned, right, and stored in the right format and to be used by the AI models. Next question. Can we take the next question? Using the example of the recent cyber security attack in Malaysia, what lessons can we learn from the incident? Could AI be used to detect and prevent this attack?
Yeah.
I think so. I think in the security sphere, don't mean to go technical, but there are many layers of security we're talking about here, right? From perimeter security to application to the database to actually end user devices, that there are many layers. Can AI be used to detect? Yes, there are solutions out there who actually harnesses AI to actually help understand system logs or traffic information to detect anomalies in the traffic or threats, and then from there alerts the security team on what to do about it. So that there are technologies that uses cloud and AI to detect and prevent attacks. So short answer is that yes.
Yeah.
So if I may add, I mean, this is an area of where
Right.
I think, as one of example I just shared, right?
Yeah.
Regulation is getting tightened, right? In any of the critical sector, whether it's from finance, telco, or you are listed co in any of the domain or global practices, right? Cybersecurity has been one of the norms that we need to be more efficient and be more proactive or in control, right? But the challenge will be is that we are going against incident and volume attacks, right? Whether it's by design or by driven by financial interest, right? So I think any organization today is that if we just still the strategy that we react to cyber is still like following what we used to do 10 years ago, probably is that the attacks already happen inside, right? It's just that you are not aware of it, right? So I will urge that any organization today is that they review the cybersecurity practices, right? You may think that, okay, I'm not the biggest guy in town, why I'm under attack, right? So that kind of thinking should be the last thing that you ask, right? So any organization today is that perimeter defense is very important, whereby the firewall, the antivirus, the prevention, detections, the intrusion defense system. Those are traditional things that we think of, right? But I think also we have to think of abnormality, right? Be able to look into a incident that at the very early stage, right? When it happens. So those are the capability of AI could discover, right? As what Yap mentioned, abnormality can happen even before it become a mainstream, right? So AI could help to identify those kind of attacks and be able to eliminate those risks. So as I want to conclude probably is that we should think of is that today how we work versus 20, 30 years ago is very different, right? 30 years ago, or is laptop is luxury. Anyone who carry a laptop, it must be the big boss, right? But today, anyone carry a laptop and a mobile phone and a tablet, right? So our touch point to attack is getting bigger or getting larger. So preventive measure is very important to make sure that every of the digital asset that we carry are secure from time to time. And if any of the penetration happen into these devices, it should be handled, it should be known by any organization immediately, right? So then control can happen to eliminate those risks. So, and one of these things to do so is using AI, right? Because people can only function at a very limited capacity. So AI can be that human functions that detect this 24/7. So that's how I want to summarize it.
Okay, thanks. We just have less than 5 minutes. I just would like to take the last question because it's something interesting. The question on whether AI will completely replace the financial analyst or it's unlikely. It's yes or no. I mean, maybe we just agree or don't agree with one or two statements. Right? Each of us maybe can contribute. I mean, each of the panelists can contribute. You want to start? Yeah, you want to start?
Yeah. No.
No.
I don't think it's about completely replacing the financial analyst. I think there are, as I was sharing in my slides as well, that there are cognitive abilities that AI has yet to kind of reach the level. Because bear in mind that the accountancy profession is not only dealing with numbers, right? We're dealing with people. We're dealing with customers, we're dealing with internal stakeholders, we're dealing with regulators. So there are many of these, I would say, human skills that we haven't seen AI replace yet. Yes, there are humanized, but it's a different topic altogether.
Yeah.
But I think it's about using the transformative possibilities as your companion. Rather than having a mindset that I'm going to be displaced or replaced totally, right? I don't think that is the case, right?
Yeah.
If I may chip in, like I can replace this text by not only financial analyst, how about software programmer, right? So
Yeah.
so today is that I don't have to know a code to write a code, right? So that can be done by any of these AI capabilities. So, but happen to be is that there is always is that when we do things, right, there's always the entry level and the advanced level. So yes, entry level could be replaced. Functions that is at entry level could be replaced, like a simple coding that can be replaced by any of these ChatGPT stuff, right? But so that's why it's very important. So it means that if I'm going to hire resources to do a very simple code, maybe those can be done by the ChatGPT. But I will use my resources for higher value activities. So maybe that's a thinking of business that I should look into.
Yeah, maybe. Sunil?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with the panelists. It's everything being called out, right? That the reasoning skills are still not there. So there's a lot of reasoning which happens. There's a lot of, engagement, collaboration which happens. There's that human touch which happens together with technology. And we've also discussed extensively that technology is an enabler, right? Always been an enabler. And it's the same for the finance and accounting profession. There are some amazing tools available for the finance and tech professionals to leverage. Yes, data entry, positions will get automated, but then the next level is essentially the huge opportunity for everyone to get to, right? Which is essentially the goal of, I would say, us humans.
All right, thank you, everyone. Maybe I'll give my views as well.
Yeah.
If you talk about the task of financial analysis, okay, within the next 2-3 years, next 5 years, maybe not, but maybe in 10 years' time, maybe it can do 100% of the financial analysis. However, the human will have to play a different role. Okay, that is, there are always new products, new things that comes up. That has to be human. Managing people, I think everyone mentioned that. Managing the company, looking at the insights of what's going on. So all this, you really need human. So that's why the focus is also now on soft skills of the people. I mean, analytical skill, cognitive ability, creativity, innovation. These are becoming key rather than the technical things. A lot of the technical things are going to be replaced. Even cybersecurity, you can say that within the next 5 years, most of the cybersecurity will be handled by Gen AI. Programming will be handled by Gen AI, etc. So that's happening across the entire boundary, all right? I mean, and that they across the all industry. So that's the take. All right. With that, I would like to thank the panelists for excellent discussion. I think it really would have benefited the audience. Thank you, each one of you. Good presentation and good discussion. Now to the chair, I mean to the Nurul. Okay.
Thank you, Professor David, and to all our panelists, Mr. Sunil, Mr. Victor, and also Mr. Yap for the wonderful discussions. And thank you everyone for sending in the questions.